Yo, people, lateness is greatness. You already know what time it is. It's time for the Transfer Checkers show. And NiiNii is on his way. You know, he's just finishing up. Do you know what I mean? The traditional clear out of the system before we start, you know, dissecting the team. That's all I've got to say. So NiiNii will be here in a second. I just dropped him a text there. But I didn't want to keep you guys too late because, again, I really apologize for being late for London Club's Carnage. I had a lot of issues with my laptop, which we're going to sort out. And yeah, you know, lateness is greatness, but we don't intend to be that late. Do you know what I mean? I really appreciate you guys waiting in just before the stream starts. So listen, we got a lot to talk about. Look at you already giving it out, George. Let me go through the comments real quick. Big up yourselves. He's not 10 hours late. Oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy. Big up the man in the chat, Victor, as well. Mike's moving mad. Is it really though? Okay, let me just check that it's the right, because to be honest, the mic is of a very good quality. Okay, speaker. Yes, I haven't got it on the right setting. See, look, this is where you guys, see, look. Setting. Now it's on the right setting. You see, this is where me and you, this is what we do. We just work together. We work together. You see that? All right. So as you can see in the title, we're going to be talking about Adama Traoré. We're going to be talking about Sergio Ramos. We're going to be talking about... Shut up, Omar. Honestly, Omar, I swear to God. We're going to be talking about really CFC News Page's report. So if you know him, he's an Instagram account, a lot of followers, about 171,000 followers. Just recently joined up with Sai and Dan Talks Chelsea, which is a blog on Twitter, which I'm sure a lot of you guys will know. Simon Phillips and Dan McCarthy, two guys that I rate highly. You know, good sources of news. They know their stuff. They got good sources, all three of them, really. And it was a great collaboration, all three of them. So I've read the report, and we're just going to discuss some of the things that I mentioned, because there's a lot of rumors going around. There's a lot of contacts being made behind the scenes. And I know a lot of people are starting to get frustrated, myself included, ladies and gentlemen. I am also frustrated. I would like the Hakimi deal to be done. However, you can see there's definitely contact being made behind the scenes. Remember, we're in the Euros as well. We're in the Euros. So some of these players that we're chasing, some of these centre-backs that we're interested in, etc., they're currently away with their national teams. And you know how players are when they're with their national teams. They prefer to focus, and rightly so. You're in an international tournament, and you're trying to focus on winning that tournament. So really, the sooner these brothers get knocked out, the better. So we can get around the negotiating table and start kicking ahead with some of our transfer dealings. If you look at the dates as well, before NiiNii gets here, because I don't want to spoil the party and talk about anything before he gets here. If you look at the dates between the final of the Euros to the Super Cup final, which is against Villarreal, I think on a Wednesday, and then we play on a Saturday against Crystal Palace, that turnover time for the players is not a lot. I think it's less than a week. Or near enough around a week max. So, you know, just bear that in mind. You know, I know we want our guys to do well, but I'm not going to lie to you. It wouldn't hurt a Germany meeting in England, a France meeting in Italy in the future, just to get some of these brothers knocked out. Do you know what I mean? I need some players to come home. What I don't need is a semi-final between France, Germany, England, and whoever else we've got high amounts of representatives in. I don't need it personally. You know, I'd prefer a little dark horse. Speaking of dark horses, I hope you guys enjoyed my video on Instagram. I did a little video paying homage to Turkey, our favorite, you know, Lloyd's TSB representatives, the dark horses as they are, you know, getting knocked out with no points. I'm looking forward to the big six with Turkish man on Wednesday. But anyway, NiiNii's clearing out some serious. What is going on, brother? Jesus, when you get in here, I'm gonna have to lay into you a little bit. Let me see this. Lateness is not greatness. Well, listen, I made this rule up, so I have to live and die by the sword, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know what I mean? If I create this catchy term, which seems to be running quite well, then hey, this is what happens. Get in your questions now. Just if you want any opinions on anything, or anything you guys want to discuss before he gets here, let me know, and we'll go through it. I think the first place to start is obviously massive condolences to Billy Gilmore. He's just caught the C word. As we know, we can't say it on YouTube. We sometimes do anyway, but we're going to try and behave today. And that's a real shame. That's a real shame, because Billy Gilmore put in a brilliant performance for Scotland. It was the one highlight in that England game, because let's be real, I didn't want to, go over that England game too much because it was, from an England perspective, atrocious. But Billy Gilmore played really well, really, really good performance from him. And now he's caught the virus and he's not going to be able to play. So it's a massive shame, people, because not only does it, push forward his portfolio in terms of the global stage, everybody getting to witness just what a talent he is, because obviously we know that as Chelsea fans already, but I think a lot of people woke up against England when they saw him. Pundits, commentary, when Roy Keane is praising you, then you should probably take notice anyway, because he doesn't praise many, but it's nice to see everybody on the Billy Gilmore train now, but unfortunately, like I said, he's not going to be able to play any more games with that. And it's a shame, because whether or not it was from a Chelsea perspective or a rival club market perspective, we could have put him on the map with a few more games for Scotland, maybe got him a good loan, and potentially, he would have. That's what I would like. I would like Billy Gilmore, ideally, to get more game time, to start week in, week out in the Premier League on a loan deal under a manager that can coach him and improve him. But the first team guarantees do need to be there for me, because I can't see another loan that flops, a Loftus-Cheek or an Ampadu or someone like that. So, yeah, I think he would do brilliant in Bielsa's side. You look at Billy Gilmore, he's got energy, he's got anticipation, he's got tempo, he's technical, he can play out from the back, he loves a tackle, loves to get involved in his duels despite his size. And I think he'd be a real good, technical player to add into that midfield ahead of a Phillips or, whoever they've, Dallas or whoever they want to pick alongside him. But I think he'd be brilliant. And he is this nice blend between a 6 and an 8. So he can play that deeper role, but you can also play him just ahead of Phillips and bring that extra security as well. So, moves like that, which we haven't really seen reported. It's not part of the report that I read or I've been reading. I haven't really seen much on Billy Gilmore on a loan, but I think that's because he's with Scotland. But it would have been nice for him to get those, those games with Scotland, those extra games to put him on the shop market. And just, it would have been great. It would have been nice, because I think he's a very talented player, but I don't think he's a player that, unless Thomas Tuchel's going to start involving him a lot more, which will be very difficult to do with the seniors that we have in midfield. It's not a player that I particularly want to see as fourth choice, playing FA Cup games, Carabao Cup games. I think he's above that. I think he's above that now. I think he's a player that can be playing regularly in the Premier League, like a Conor Gallagher did at West Brom, really propel. And if you look at the guys that go out on loan, Mount, Tomori, Abraham, Christensen at Mönchengladbach, when they come back, their stake and their ratings almost in the Chelsea hierarchy seem to propel. They seem to go up. These guys that take a loan, they do well on their loan. When they come back, they seem to have a little bit more respect on their name. And that's really what I hope for Billy. I've said a long time on this channel. I've said a long time on Twitter as well. I see Billy Gilmore as the future, successor to Jorginho or to Kova, because I think he's the kind of guy that, you need that ability to play out from the back under pressure, take those small touches, the low sense of gravity that he has. You need that in midfield in the modern game, in my opinion. It's not good enough to just be a clunky DM who can win the ball and tackle and, but if you can't play out from the back in a possession-based system, there's going to be a lot of turnovers and you can win as many tackles and interceptions as you want. But if your possession goes down, you do tend to concede more chances. That's something that Pep has clearly shown with Manchester City keeping possession for all these years. It's something that Sarri implemented and why Chelsea didn't concede too many open play goals under him in that season as well. And the more you give the ball away, the more if you give the ball away in dangerous positions, the more, you can be subject to conceding chances and high quality chances as well. So playing out from the back and having players that are competent playing out from the back are very, very important. Someone just said NiiNii is Sly playing with his new PS5 friend. Yo, man, that was funny. I'm not going to lie. When I seen that photo up, a little bit of jealousy did come in. I've been waiting for that. But I'm not, to be honest, I want the PS5, but them ones where it's one of those things where it's like trainers. People buy them to sell them for higher amounts. It's been so long since it came out now. The hype is gone. Until maybe like a GTA 6 comes out, you're not really going to catch me mullering over it. Check WhatsApp. What's Monstar saying? Is he? Yes, of course. Of course, my brother. Of course you can join. It'll be an absolute pleasure. It will be an absolute pleasure. Let me send Monstar the link. We're going to have three brothers cooking here today. Fantastic. That's fantastic because I want to get your opinions on this. Fantastic. Because the oil boys it gets overtaken by some Man City fans, but this is an opportunity to really just chat Chelsea. Someone said Let me see these comments. I don't want to put it out there, but you know, he was taking a dump. So I don't know how it's going. You know, when a brother's taking a dump, you never know really how it's going. It could be one of them situations where the socks are off. You know, the socks are off, the trainers are off. You're hell bent over. It's a struggle. You never know what the situation could be. So I would rather not disturb and disrupt. Just wait calmly in an orderly fashion, people. Because listen. So Monstar's going to be joining us, and I guess, you know, we're gonna mention the first link, all right? And I really appreciate you guys sticking around despite the clickbait title of NiiNii not even being here. The first thing I want to discuss, I guess we'll start from the smaller news and gossip in that, well, not even gossip, in that credible report, and then work our way upwards. Chelsea, in terms of their interest in the certain positions. Now, you guys know, if you've been following him on Instagram, Sergio Ramos and Monstar as well just did a stream. Sergio Ramos is apparently a target of ours. We've been in contact with his camp. Now, how do I feel about this? We've brushed upon it a few times, you know, on the Transfer Checkers show already with Dami and Anita. But to really get into it in more detail, I think it's one of those deals that I already said before. I can't personally tell you that I want nothing to do with Sergio Ramos, because when a player of that legendary status becomes available, or there could be a potential for signing, we all know the logistics and the logic behind it potentially is a little bit 50-50. Do we really need him? Is he a priority? Of course not. You know, we've got centre-backs. We've been playing well defensively. We haven't been conceding goals. Is his wages an issue as well? 100%. You know, I don't know what he's on at Real Madrid. I think potentially maybe 300 grand a week. Do we really want to be paying that for a position that we don't need right now in terms of priorities? Probably not. So these things also have to come into it. But he is available on a free. And that, you know, the massive amount of outlay that you have in a transfer fee, you know, you think about it, just divide it up. You spend 70 million on a centre-back, which is, if Ramos was in his prime, he'd be worth that. What would he be worth in current market? Maybe 30 million, maybe something like that. Maybe 25, 30 million because of his age. You know, that's a lot of money in wages. You know, you only have to do some calculations to understand that is a lot of money in wages. So Sergio Ramos on a free, you're already scrapping the transfer fee, and that's why his wages will be quite high. The reason why I can't tell you people that I am 100% not wanting anything to do with this transfer target is because of Kurt Zouma. That's because of Kurt Zouma. Now, you can see that Kurt Zouma is at the bottom of the pecking order in terms of centre-backs. Let me just keep an eye on the chat. He's at the bottom, you know, the bottom of the pecking order in that respect. And that's mainly because of the ball playing aspect. We've moved to 3 at the back. I mean, again, 12 months ago, most of the fan base would have said Zouma is our best centre-back in a back 4. You know, he was the one that was maybe the most consistent last season. But now, you know, he's gone completely to the bottom. He's literally gone from the top to the bottom in that respect, because you're playing with 3 at the back. You know that you're going to need your ball-playing centre-backs there to be able to break the lines of press and just move the ball quickly. You know, even playing with the ball and passing is one thing, but to do it at a speed and a tempo, and to make sure that your touch is on point all the time and it sets you up for your next pass, or to pass it properly at a good speed that puts it in front of the player that you're passing it to again, just quicken the tempo. All these little things and the little details and building out from the back make a difference. If you have to take an extra touch as a centre-back, or you have to put it onto your stronger foot because the pass wasn't as good as it could have been, you put yourself into a position where the build-up play is slower. So Monstar's in the building, all right? And like I said, that's where the centre-back links come from. We mentioned that when we had Liam Tooney on not so long ago, last week. Big up Monstar, how you doing, bro? You good?
Man, like Matisse.
My brother. It's all good, man. All good. It's good to be chatting with you again. Nice DL Chelsea show. I know you just did a stream. And yeah, like I said, we're just on the centre-backs because I think people are maybe confused as to why we're linked with Ramos's and Varane's. And I was just saying that when I had Liam on last week, and it's been said quite a few times now, is that when we're looking for centre-backs, it's mainly because of 2 things. One, we've got contracts that are running out that have not been signed up. You know, Antonio Rudiger, Aspilicueta, Christensen. And of course, you know, we're probably all confident that we'll get those done. But when they're not done, there is that small, 1% chance that, okay, you need to make precautions just in case you don't get those done. And Zouma as well being available, which was in CFC News page's report on Simon and Dan's blog today. I mean, what do you make of Zuma on the way out? Are you all right to part with him for good amount of money?
The thing that worries me about Zuma is Zuma in possession does at times scare me. There's times he hasn't really cost us this season that much, if we're being honest. Obviously, in both Southampton games, I think he made a couple mistakes. Against Tottenham, where we drew, I think it was 0-0 when Lampard was still in charge. There was that last-minute mistake that, could have cost us the game. I think it was Lo Celso that made a terrible pass, and that bailed us out. So on the ball, he does worry me at times. I don't know. I'm just not convinced, innit?
Yeah.
And that's why I think Tuchel wants a centre back that's more comfortable on the ball. Do you get what I mean? And that's why I can see, obviously, with Varane, it's a situation. Listen, Varane's contract is about to expire. Do you get what I mean? At Real Madrid, you're talking about one of the premier defenders in the game. Do you get what I'm saying? Being available, and he will be available for a cut price. Do you know what I'm saying?
So you would prioritize going after Varane and spending, I mean, what would it be? Maybe 50, 60 million apparently in the report.
Could be less.
Could be less over the Ramos situation. It's weird to me that it's weird to me that Real Madrid would even consider selling Rafael Varane when they've just got rid of Ramos. I know they've got Alaba who's just come in, Militao as well, I think. Militao come in as well. Nacho, but that's not a lot of depth, is it? It's 3 centre backs for 2 positions.
Well, that's the thing, though. The thing is, it's with the Varane situation is out of their hands. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like they've offered him a contract. He's the one that is, so far, it looks like he's turning the contract down. Do you get what I mean? What can they do? Do you get what I'm saying? They can't do anything. It's either they sell him now, get some money for him, use that money. From what I've heard, they could be using that money to go. If he does leave, they'll use that money to go and get Jules Koundé instead. And so you know what I mean, either that or they lose him on a free. Do
you know what it is as well? Is that obviously Carlo Ancelotti just took charge. I would have thought that potentially he would have been a fan of Varane and he would have maybe convinced him to stay, isn't it?
He should, because I'm pretty sure Varane was there when he was there the first time around. Varane,
I'm pretty sure.
Varane's been a mainstay in this Real Madrid team since Mourinho brought him in at 18 years. I think he was 18 when Mourinho brought him in.
So this is where the confusion comes for me, because again, Varane is one of those ones where obviously everybody knows my dream is Marquinhos. That's never going to happen. But right now, do we see it realistic that Chelsea will get a striker in? Because we know that's obviously the clear priority. And we'll move on to that later as well. The wing-back situation seems like something that Tuchel is hell-bent on bringing in, hence the alternative to Adama Traoré. So a lot of people thought, and this is where my thinking started to change, and I want to talk about this with you as well. When I started to look at, because really a centre-back situation, if Zuma leaves, I'm okay with bringing the centre-back. I also think there's options to promote Mark Gahey, but I would prefer him to go out on loan to a Premier League team and get that extra year under his belt. It doesn't strike me as a priority position, but at the same time, we know how important the centre-backs are in this system. 3 at the back, they're basically an extra midfielder at this point. But you've got Reece James in there. You've got Azpilicueta. Do you see centre-back as a priority then? Because I know you're a big fan of Varane. Do you see that as something that we should definitely be trying to get sorted this summer?
It depends. Obviously, we've got Rudiger, Tiago Silva. We've got, Christensen. Then we've got Kurt Zuma and Azpilicueta. Now, if we persist with this back 3, you're going to need the numbers in the centre back position. Do you get what I mean? You need about, let's say, about 5 or 6. Do you get what I mean? So if Zuma does leave and Chelsea do sell Zuma, then you have to bring someone else in, or else you are very light when it comes to set the centre back position.
And also Tiago Silva's, we know, probably got 1 more year left in him as well. So it's kind of building.
And he can't play every game as well. So that's where. So in a way, depending on the situation on hand, then it might be a priority in the summer. It depends.
It's one of those things. I remember when we signed Kai Havertz and people were like, well, is this really necessary? We just signed Ziyech. We've got quite a lot of attacking midfielders. When a player of this ilk comes onto the market, and we're talking about world-class with Rafael Varane, right? We're talking about world-class. Ramos is obviously free. He's world-class as well. Sometimes when these players are available, you kind of just have to bring, because like you said, 1 year left on his contract. If you don't bring him in now, what does the centre-back pool look like next summer? We don't know. When Tiago Silva leaves and potentially we're in more need of a centre-back. So sometimes you just have to bring in someone, even though it might not be a priority, but if the market is looking that way, then better to bring them in now and be screwed later on. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what? With regards to both Sergio Ramos and Varane as well, is you're not just bringing in anyone, you're also bringing in winners. Yeah. You're bringing in guys in your team that have been there and done that and have a certain mentality whereby you know, and they're at the back, they're in the back of your defense. Yeah. So they can see the game, they can, you know, direct your players to do certain thing. Do you get what I mean? That's why I'm like, you know what? These are guys where, yeah, why not? Do you know what I mean? Like, definitely. If you can't say no to these type of players, I'm sorry. You can't. If they're available, you go and get them. Go and get them. Same way Tiago Silva became available. You saw the mentality within, it's been what, a year or less than a year?
The difference he's made on our team is incredible. Incredible.
Now imagine bringing in Sergio Ramos as well, who has that similar mentality, who's a serial winner as well. Imagine bringing him into your team. I prefer Varane over Ramos solely based on the age factor. Now, you know, based on, you know, you don't really want an age in defense like that. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously you've got both Ramos and Tiago Silva now. So I would rather Varane because Varane is much younger, also quicker and everything as well. He has the legs. So but apart from that, you know, these are great options to bring in if possible.
I think this largely depends on whether Rudiger's contract gets tied up towards the end of the window. Because I think if it doesn't, you think so? Because if it doesn't, then Chelsea might start panicking. Do you know what I mean? They might start saying, well, we've only got a year left with you and Varane's only got a year left. We need to just in case, again, it's about, you know, taking those precautions just in case we can't get this done. You know, this is going to be something that we're going to pursue. With Ramos, do you have any reservations on him as a player or a character to bring in? Because I've spoken to quite a few people on this now, and I'm getting mixed feelings. Obviously, we know his wages are high, but I think Ramos is the kind of player that if he comes in and he's on the highest wages, no one's going to bat an eyelid. It's Sergio Ramos. It's one of the greatest defenders to ever grace our game. Facts. Do you know what I mean? From when you look at him, I remember I seen a comp on Twitter for Ramos, because obviously Real Madrid fans are obviously, you know, wishing him well and saying goodbyes, and started to, as the same we did for Eden Hazard in a way. The comps, man, when you look at Ramos, just what he's done in his career, the goals, it's incredible. It's actually incredible. Do you know what I mean?
And let's not act like he's, you know, before people even say, oh, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. No, Ramos has been very integral, you know, scoring headers when they need it. Remember the Champions League final, the La Decima final against Atletico Madrid. It was Ramos, I think, that got the winner, right? I'm pretty sure it was. I think Bale got the equalizer and Ramos got the winner. Also,
I remember Ramos. Yeah, was it Ramos's equalizer? Isn't it just before extra time? Was it?
It was either Ramos. I think it was Bale's equalizer, but Ramos got the winner. I think that might have been.
Can't remember. I know Ramos scored against Atletico Madrid. I know. I'm probably talking about different games here because he's done it so many times on the Champions League stage. I remember he definitely got a goal against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League final to take it to extra time, just before the whistle was about to go. Probably the last set piece. And then I know he scored 2 goals. Was it against Bayern? Can't remember. He's done a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Like when you're talking about just the trophies as well, I was looking at his cabinet, like 4 Champions Leagues, I think 5 or 6 La Ligas, World Cup, Euros, multiple Copa del Reys. He's won, like there's nothing this guy hasn't won. It's that crazy. Like it's that mad how much of a serious, and he's played an integral part of that as well. And Real Madrid, without him, look a completely different side. The one, I do have reservations of him. Obviously, he has been injured quite a few times recently. He is quite rash. I can't sit here and deny that. Of course. Ramos is a madman. I remember I used to, back in the day, well, not that long ago, about 5 or so years, every, what do you call it? I used to always bet on the Clásicos, Ramos to get a red card. He used to always win me money. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
always win me money. So that's why I'm like, that's where it's just like he is a bit rash in that sense, but at the same time, like he's the ultimate leader as well. This guy is the ultimate leader.
Do you think there's such a thing as having too many cooks in the kitchen? Because that's another argument that's brought into it. We have Tiago Silva, who's kind of the leader of men in the back. If you bring in Ramos, you've got two people that kind of do the same job in that respect of leading the team.
Because if you remember our Chelsea team, the prior generation, they had Ballack, Lampard, John Terry, Drogba, not Ashley Cole. They just check. These were all captains of their own nations.
Drogba.
Do you know what I mean? All of these guys were captains. So you can't have too many captains in your team.
And you know what's interesting as well? Sometimes his character is brought into question, which is obviously something Chelsea have been trying to steer away from, this whole like players dominate the dressing room type rubbish, and trying to make the manager the most important person in the building, which is kind of the Klopp Pep situation. And I love that, by the way. And I think Tuchel not only is cut out for that role in terms of he's got the knowledge, he's now got the accolades of winning the Champions League. Once you win the Champions League, no one can chat to you. Simple.
Oh.
So he's got that stature now that it would take at a club like Chelsea. And because it's quite a young team that haven't really won much as well, I feel like it's very similar and reminiscent to the Mourinho team when he first came in, and he'd already won a Champions League as well. Obviously, these players have won it with him, but they've won it with him. They didn't win it before him, so they can't really step to him. Do you know what I mean? In that respect, they kind of have to have that base level of respect. A lot of these players, a lot of these young players, and even the senior players, like your Rudigers, your Ziyech's, this is their first massive trophy. Do you know what I mean? They weren't here for the Prem wins. This is their first major trophy, and they've won it with Tuchel. So that baseline respect now for Tuchel is apparent throughout the whole squad. So he now has that situation where he can kind of be the main man. And do you think if Sergio Ramos comes in, that dynamic switches up a little bit? Because that's another thing that people have been saying, potentially, that dynamic might be ruined if Ramos comes in, because he can kind of split dressing rooms.
I don't think it was because of how long he's coming there for as well. He's not coming there for long. I don't think he'll be one of the guys to necessarily split the dressing room. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's coming on that kind of vibe. He's just coming to get another year or two's big contract, just to win whatever, maybe a little challenge as well to win whatever he can. That's the vibe I think he's going to come on. I don't think there's enough players in the dressing room to be as divisive as, do you know what I mean? I don't think that's the case. I mean, but if maybe that is something Chelsea should look into, maybe, do you know what I mean? Maybe, because you're right with concerns to Tuchel. Like, I remember when Mourinho came in, none of the players that were at Chelsea at the time were winners, except the guys he brought in. Paulo Ferreira. Who else did he bring in? He brought in Tiago, but Tiago was at Benfica before that. He wasn't with him at Porto. Carvalho. Those guys were winners with him at Porto. They won the Champions League and whatever other trophies they won. But majority of the players that Mourinho had were not winners. They were, looking to win stuff, so it was easier for him to coach. Similar situation with Tuchel, whereby he's coming to a team of young players. We know the hell he received at PSG. They gave him absolutely no respect. The players were doing whatever the hell they wanted. Do you know what I mean? But Tuchel's coming and he seems very happy. So yes, you do have to be careful and consider. Maybe you need to consider that situation, innit? But apart from that, I mean, bringing in a leader such as Ramos, I don't see any wrong with it. Because
that's partly the reason why Tuchel left PSG, because of those in-house battles that he had to face with Neymar, and Mbappe. And that's the one thing that I think if we avoid that at Chelsea, then I think he's got an opportunity to be here for quite a while. But if we have that kind of situation again where there's in-house, and we know how it goes with Chelsea, you don't have to, do you know what I mean? It's in our nature. True. It's in our nature. We got NiiNii backstage. Yeah, bless up. Let me just see if he's ready. All good? All good, brother? All good? There we go. All right, so NiiNii's ready. We're going to be bringing him in now. Just before we was about to move from the centre-back talk, lovely stuff. We're going to get his opinion on it. Big up yourself, brother. How are you?
Hey,
there we are.
I'm very good, man. Very good. How you, man, doing? You guys
all
are
good,
yeah?
All good. All good, all good. I mean, listen, we got so much to discuss, man, with this centre-back situation. Me and Monstar have been cutting it up. What do you, because obviously CFC News report, CFC News page, very credible on Instagram. It's reported, in today's blog that, Ramos has been in contact with Chelsea, or Chelsea have been in contact with Ramos for the past maybe a few days. What do you make of that? Is that someone that you would like to bring in, or not too keen?
I feel like obviously Sergio Ramos, you know what you're getting from him. You're getting immediate short-term quality. You know what I mean? And of course, the ambition is to keep on winning things. Then having figures like that in the team, of course, these are the type of players you look for and the players you want. But for me, it'll be interesting though. Like a part of me does feel like, okay, these Ramos links, the club's a business. It's normal and standard that if they're not getting guarantees from other centre backs about committing their future here, that of course they're going to have to look around and see who's available and who's interested. Yeah. So I still feel like any potential centre back will literally be determined by who we sell first. You know what I mean? So if we ever find out one thing like Ramos was signed all of a sudden, then that's going to tell us for sure someone's definitely out that door. But until we see that, then I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Yeah, they're saying you got a square.
You got something on your face.
I swear that is very mad.
It's like a missile.
Yeah. Sorry about that, you guys.
No problem. No problem.
Is it cool if I can turn this
just turn the screen off if you need to. Yeah. No
okay, calm. Apologies, you guys. I didn't even clock that.
The chat were moving mad there. I was looking at the chat. I was like, okay, great, no problem. I mean. Also, Monstar, a lot of people, like I was speaking to Anita about this as well, a lot of people don't really rate Varane highly. I mean, how do you look upon him? Because, some, people 1 minute, people are like, okay, world-class, top defender, let's give him his flowers, France, World Cup, Real Madrid, do you know what I mean? Leading Kimpembe for France, Real Madrid, doing your thing, winning Champions Leagues. And now, and then suddenly it can flip in an instant. How do you kind of compartmentalize this situation with this fan base?
It's not just this fan base, it's just football Twitter and just people on Twitter or whatever in a nutshell. Like, I feel like a lot of people just hear what one person says and they take that as the general opinion. And I always ask people, like, I remember when I was talking about obviously what's his name? What was his name? Lukaku. A lot of people were saying, no, his first touch, he's this, he's that. And I asked him, since he's moved from Man United, have you watched him? Because if you watched him since he's gone to Inter Milan, you would have known he's stepped up his game, he's worked on his body, different things, worked on the way he's played and blah, blah.
Yeah.
Varane, what a lot of people, they don't watch him, number one. Number two, they go off that one game or two games against City where, yes, he got used and abused by Jesus and City's team in general, but what centre-back doesn't? Do you get what I mean? What centre-back doesn't? So, as we saw him in the Euros, he looked very good. Obviously, the second game where there was a draw, people were saying that was Varane's fault. I say that wasn't Varane's fault. That was more Pavard's fault because Pavard was out of position. Varane did what he needed to do. He was there with his man. I think Varane is a very good centre-back. He's good enough to play at Chelsea. I mean, come on. What kind of this? People say he needs Ramos to hold his hand, but that's not true because he's been playing at times without Ramos. Ramos has had a lot of injuries recently, and also for France, we see how brilliant he is with a young centre-back like Kimpembe as well. We've seen him with Umtiti. We've seen him with other centre-backs. So the talk of him needed someone to hold his hand is absolute nonsense. It's just what people are saying on Twitter that everyone else is echoing. People just say the same thing over and over again, and not a lot of people do their own research in it.
I mean, NiiNii, to bring you in here, I mean, what's your opinion on Raphael Varane? Because obviously, I mean, would you see it as a priority to bring him in, or is that something that you see as icing on the cake? But also, have you got anyone that you see coming up through the ranks where you'd maybe want to give a go as well?
I mean, to be honest, my opinion has always been consistent, and that's the fact that I'm more than happy with the defense we have already. Let's not forget the clean sheets records we had last season out of this world. You know what I mean? We've got some top defenders, and I think that they all proved that last season. I don't remember any guys slipping in and being one to stand out that was a weak link. Yeah. So I'm more than happy to keep what we got. But in the case of Varane, I agree with what Monstar was saying. I do feel at times that a lot of times when people clock someone for the first time, that's normally during like a Champions League game or something that's been publicly broadcasted. That's some people are more quick to want to make very harsh opinions and definitive ones, like, oh, if this is what I saw from you, this must mean this is all you are. You know what I mean? This ain't like a one-off game. This is me knowing your ability just like that. You're not good enough. My thing is though, of course, Varane's a top defender. Based on obviously some of the like reports I've been coming out from over the years, like, is he one of like the greatest top defenders out there? I don't think he is. but I do think he's definitely a top 4 level defender. You know, he's a great defender. And of course, you know, if he's looking to replace one of the guys that could be potentially going, then I think he'd be another interesting option, to be honest.
Yeah. I think right now where I'm sitting on this is that obviously I can see why the links are there because the contracts are running out. I do like Reece James in that right side centre-back position. I do like, obviously, Rudiger's stepped up massively on the left-hand side and Christensen's been great in the middle. Tiago Silva, we know, probably got a year left. The dream for me has always been Marquinhos, and I think he's a level above. Then after that, I think Varane sits in that pool of like world-class defenders. But also, you know, I think to myself, Chelsea as a whole, who else? Who are their other targets? Do you know what I mean? Outside of Varane, I haven't really heard. I mean, Koundé at Sevilla. I think he, for me personally, I like his style. I really do. I think he's very combative, really good playing out from the back from what I've seen as well. But I do worry about his height just a little bit. And I think, you know, it shouldn't be a massive issue in the back three. We've seen Azpilicueta do it as well. But what we have to really define what centre back we're looking for. We're looking for one on the left hand side, one in the middle, or one on the right hand side, because those three positions are very different. On the left hand side, I'd like a Mark Gahey to be just under Rudiger because I think his weaker foot is not really even weak. Do you know what I mean? I think from a ball playing perspective, on that left hand side, he would be a fantastic deputy. On the right hand side, I like Reece James. Azpilicueta is getting on, but he's still proven year in, year out that he can keep coming back. Yeah. And in the middle, you've got Christensen. So I think maybe you need to find someone for that middle, you know, just to compete with Christensen. I'm not sure, but that's just to be a bit more detailed on that front, 100%. Let me think to myself. I don't
know, man. I feel like, so this is what I'm saying. Like, you're breaking down the centre-back situation. Let's say we do sign a right-sided player for right wing-back. We're going to see James playing down as a right, you know, playing on the right-hand side of that back three. It feels like we're already kind of filled out in those positions. So if you're signing Varane, like, where exactly is he playing? Is he the guy that I'm going to use in the base of a defense? Potentially, I don't know. Is he like a ball player like that? I wouldn't say he's like on a Tiago Silva level or in that type of caliber defender. So for me, you know, I find the link interesting, but as you're stressing, what is that tactical role that we need in the team? Who's going to fill that out? And for me, I think we need to go for a defender that can kickstart the moves at the back. You know, Tiago Silva has, for me, been one of the most slept-on defenders in the Premier League last season, which baffles me, considering, you know, how well-class he is. And we see how he plays on the ball, that composure he brings to the team. You know, we see that he never panics. He's that focal point for the team when it comes to playing out from the back too. And you know, when you have him in the team, essentially you have like your deep line playmaker, because we are constantly seeing Tiago playing passes, finding Ben down that left hand side, playing incredible balls in behind. There was that one. What was that game? Was it in the final, FA Cup final, when he played that beautiful pass to Ben Chilwell, which he's been doing for fun throughout the season. And you know, it was like when we had David Luiz too as well playing back there. That's the profile you want to have. And I think with Koundé, you know, Koundé's a top guy. Yeah, his height could be a thing, but for me, I care more about if they're stocky. Like, he's a stocky guy. He's got a great low center of gravity, which is great for 1v1 defending. The guy's leap too is unreal in the air. So I feel like he'd be able to definitely handle himself. But again, if you're going to be replacing that like-for-like guy in the middle, he needs to be a defender that you know is going to ball out from the back, basically.
Yeah, I agree. David Luiz is a great example. When he played that sweeper on the Conte, he was unbelievable. Just before we go to the next position, NiiNii, your thoughts on Zuma? I spoke to Monstar about this just before you got here as well. Zuma, are you okay with Zuma potentially on the exit for a certain amount of money?
I mean, to be honest, man, personally, I'd be upset if Zuma was to go. I think that not only is he like a sick guy to have in the team, in the squad, but I thought this guy had a great season too last year as well. And I don't remember many mistakes from him at all. Let's not forget his threat from set pieces. And I think when it comes to playing out from the back, he's not a Tiago Silva on the ball, but let's not act like he's Gary Cahill. Like, you know what I mean? He's not on that spectrum of things. Was
Gary Cahill that bad on the ball?
Yes. He did. Nah, he was. No composure, bro. You close him down, boom. That's it.
He's not. He's not Gary Cahill, but he did make some mistakes, like the Southampton games.
That was a positional error from him, wasn't it? Really.
The first one was, I think the first one
Minamino's
was a positional error.
Yeah,
he was also one of the ones where him and Kepa both made mistakes that led to one of the goals as well. Just the thing about Zuma is at times he has these lapses in concentration. The thing about Christensen Or who else? I always say, like, when it comes to Zuma, when he makes mistakes, it's very deadly, innit? He might not make that many, but when he does make them, they always lead to goals, innit? And that worries me at times, innit? Luckily against Tottenham in the first game when Lampard was still manager, he gave the ball away. And I said to you earlier on, Matisse, I think it was Lo Celso just put in a lazy ball that didn't end up getting in the back of the net. I think that might worry Tuchel or whoever in the team, that this guy on the ball is not comfortable enough. And it might worry them, hence why they're looking at him to leave, because, you know, when you look at the rest of our centre-backs, they're very comfortable on the ball. They can pass it, they can ping the ball as well. They just look better in general, innit? So
I think, do you know what it is with Zuma? He's a very, very likable character. And also, if you are to switch to a back four, we know, you know, for me, he's good enough in a back four. Do you know what I mean? He's very good in a back four. But in a back three, the centre-backs are so heavily involved in possession. They have to step into midfield. You've seen Rudiger go on those mazy runs. And Zuma is the only one at the moment that I do worry about, especially in tight spaces. I think if he gives Zuma time, he can switch play, he can make the passes, no problem. But when you're under that press in a Champions League game against Atletico Madrid, and they're swarming you, and you need to play out from the back to maintain the philosophy that Tuchel's instructed to build through the back and then, you know, progress. Because usually when Chelsea clear long, it doesn't really, evolve to anything these days. We don't have that natural number 9 that can hold the ball up and has paces at the same time as well.
But even Matisse, if you look at the Arsenal game as well, where the 1-0, the last time we played them, where Zuma was on the ball. So a lot of people do blame Jorginho, and some people blame Kepa. I don't know why. Maybe he should have been in goal. But if you look at it before then, Zuma had
a clear pass,
3 opportunities to pass it to Ben Chilwell. There was a time in that same sequence, Billy Gilmore made himself available to get the ball to him. But Zuma decided to play the ball back to him, and Jorginho started ping-ponging the ball between each other. And then by the last time he played it to Jorginho had about 3 or 4 players around him and had to pass it back to Kepa, and Kepa obviously wasn't in goal. And then the goal happened, innit? So it's just situations like that where you've got to look forward, or if you're in doubt, as they say, just kick it out. Simple as that.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. I do feel though that I don't think Zuma's mistakes like typify him as a player. Like, you know, I've seen enough of him over the years to know that I've got no defender's perfect. Every defender every season is making some type of error, and I don't think that Zuma is like a high error type of player. But I do think, though, bringing up the points, though, of course, as you guys have mentioned, it is about how you play from the back. And obviously that game against Arsenal, Monstar, perfect example that you used. You know, that you need to play that ball to Ben, because that's how the system ticks, because Gilmore knew where he had to be to receive that pass from Ben. And I think my thing was, though, to be honest, obviously under Tuchel, it felt like there wasn't really like a proper role for Zuma. You know, he's playing down the left a lot of times, sometimes in the middle, when actually I think he's better down the right-hand side. You know, during the start of the season, that's when he was on his stronger foot. That's when I think he's a lot better on the ball, when he's finding people down that left-hand side. We've seen him switch balls he has in his locker. And, you know, I think when he sets up with the ball too, he's comfortable. But when you've got Azpilicueta and Reece James, it kind of means you have no place down the right-hand side. So I guess maybe from a tactical perspective, maybe that's why Zuma is one of those guys who could be more, you know, the club could look to move on in the summer because of that.
Yeah, I think with Zuma, just before we move on, I think with him, listen, he's a very good defender, and I hope we don't sell him to a Premier League rival, because I think he'll improve a lot of defensive that play a back four, even top clubs. You know, I think he'll improve them. Yeah, I think he'll 100%. Well, sadly, isn't it? I hope not, but that probably is where his market is currently. But I think he will improve back fours. I think he'd improve Manchester United's defense. I think definitely would improve Arsenal's defense without a doubt in their back fours. But in the back three, like I said, I just feel that even if you have to take those extra touches as a centre back, or you don't quite pass it as crisp on the ground as the next person, these little finer details, they make the difference when you're building out from the back, especially when you're being pressed. And I just think to myself, I'd say he's like average on the ball, but when you're playing a back three, you need to be way above average. You need to be great.
Okay. So who's like, just so I understand, like on this like spectrum here, who's like an example of like an average player defensively when it comes to playing out from the back?
Average playing out from the back
in his Chelsea team.
In this Chelsea
in
team,
general, like just like in the Premier in general. That's how I know like what the levels are. Like when I'm like trying to rank Zuma.
I'd say obviously Thiago Silva's world
class. A lot
class.
of them in the Premier League.
I'd say Thiago Silva will go down as world class. I'd say Christensen would go down as like a very good or good. And then
He's
I'd say
he's one of the best out there.
He is, but sometimes I do ask for Christensen to be a little bit more. Obviously, there's levels. So Tiago Silva is obviously the top level. I think Christensen can do more in terms of breaking the line. Sometimes I think he's got another way to go. But when he moved to right side centre back, then we started to see even more from him. Maybe
when he steps up, because I think
when he steps up,
that's what this game's always been about. He's more comfortable instead of like playing that pass from A to B. He can carry that ball, step into midfield, and I think that's why Tuchel uses him down that right hand side. But I don't know. For me, like I don't know. I look at like defenders and roles. You have your ball playing defenders. You have like your more classic style ones. There's all like these different roles defenders have. You know, it's like saying, I don't know. Let's say you had Vidic in your team, for example. You know, you're going to say that he's crap because maybe some aspects aren't the same as his best ones. I don't know. I don't think Zuma's like an average player. But
not average player, but from a ball playing perspective, I'd say average.
I think it could be a bit negative sometimes on the ball for sure. Yeah, in terms of pass selection.
The thing is, and I was saying this the other day that the role of obviously if you look at Vidic, as you said, obviously in today it would be looked at in a different perspective, but that's because the role of a centre back now has changed, unlike it was before. David Luiz was way ahead of his time. He was kind of underappreciated. Back then, because he wasn't your traditional, just, those type of defenders. He was a ball-playing defender, which we probably very rarely seen in the Prem. But nowadays, if a young David Luiz was to come to the Prem now, we'll be looking at him as a world-class centre-back, innit?
That's a good point.
But it changes, isn't it? It's changed.
Yeah, it's the same with the goalkeepers. Even the goalkeepers didn't used to have, say like a Van der Sar, didn't have to think about ball playing too often. Now you're getting more touches. You're seeing goalkeepers get assists. You're having to be part of the build-up. Look at Mendy. And this is the thing. It's not even a fact of, because I remember we used to speak about this. It's not even the fact of Zuma not looking good while doing it, because a lot of people say Mendy doesn't look good while playing out from the back. But I will strongly go against that. Yeah, because Mendy is brilliant on the ball. Yeah, brilliant on the ball. I'd arguably say he's even better than Kepa sometimes on the ball.
No, he's much better than Kepa. Like even the way that ball, the trajectory of it, like the weight behind it. Like Kepa was signed to be the ball playing guy, and actually looking back, he looked like a ball playing keeper because he was fine. Adarith up front for Athletic Bilbao. You know what I mean? Just pumping up long balls basically. You don't see him kickstart attacks, and most times he's finding the fullbacks out wide. It's going out of play. You know what I mean? So I think Mendy is just on a different level to Kepa and everything. To be honest,
I would agree.
But at the same time with Zuma, though, I've got a lot of respect for him. I definitely agree with the points you guys are making about some of the ability on the ball. But again, for me, this guy on the Gary Cahill level, I think he's a lot better. He can ping a pass from 70 yards. His pass completion has always been in the high 80s and stuff like that. And low 90s. So this guy I think is kind of underrated. But if you're expecting ball playing,
breaking the lines ability, kind of stuff.
Then of course that's not his thing. But Zuma, his last ditch tackles for me one of the best in the Prem. When he wins that ball, it's clean. He doesn't get yellow cards. When he gets his body in front of the ball, you're not getting it past him. You know what I mean? His reading of the game is good too. That's why he doesn't have to break pace all the time to get back in position. So I think he's a great defender, but again, it comes down to what the direction now is for the club and how we're going to move. And I think from a ball player that you don't have to spend no money for, we got Mark Guehi.
You know what I mean? There you go. That's what I was going to mention. That's a proper ball playing centre back right there. Both footed, loves to be. He's brilliant. That's why he's been fantastic, and he's played a back four and a back three, so the versatility is there.
And Yamba too is looking exciting. We're seeing them little comments he's putting out there on Twitter. I feel like this guy. I'm hoping he gets a pre-season. I'm excited to see what he can bring because. He looks like a player.
Moving on to wing back, because obviously, again, this is not a position I would have put down as high priority because I think James can play out there. I think I was really happy to see Hudson-Odoi's cameo. Well, not even cameo. He had a really good run under Tuchel at the beginning. I think he was really good out there. Maybe not his strongest position because I know a lot of people want to see him eventually on the left wing. But Hudson-Odoi at right wing back, I'm just happy for him to get into the team. Whatever position it is at this point, I'm not really too fussed. But we know we've been linked with Hakimi. The details there are starting to get finicky. Obviously, Inter Milan are taking advantage of the bidding war, as you'd expect. Do you know what I mean? There's two high-profile rich clubs coming after him that can really afford to pay any price. We're trying to involve players. Marcos Alonso's been in there. Zappacosta, two players that I would no qualms really involving in that deal. And PSG are looking for a flat rate. But Adama Traoré's come up as the alternative. What do you guys make of him? Because for me personally, when I spoke to NiiNii about this topic last week, this was the type of player that I wasn't keen on bringing in to spend and purchase when we have, in my opinion, a very, very talented Livramento. But when it's Hakimi who's world class, I'm okay with, I'm okay with that blockage, because unless Tino Livramento was to become world class, you would never really truly regret it. And Hakimi's already world class and 22. I don't think Adama Traoré has the potential to be world class. But I mean, what do you guys make of that link? Whoever wants to take it.
The thing is, I see pros and cons with Traoré. Yeah. What did we struggle last season with? It's breaking down teams, right?
Yeah.
What does Traoré give you? He's the type of direct winger that can take on players and you know what I mean? Get to the byline quite easily, get some very good crosses, and he's one of the best at doing that.
Yeah.
He did one thing people don't notice is people were looking at his numbers last season, and it was very low. And I said, well, you do know his numbers were going to reduce because Raul Jimenez was injured for majority
100%.
So of course his numbers were going to diminish. If you look at the numbers the previous season where him and Jimenez were combining very well, his numbers were heightened and it looks similar to those numbers of Hakimi. Do you know what I mean? The numbers were similar. And one thing about Traoré as well is that where I have reservations with Hakimi, listen, you bring him in, it's only going to make our squad better, right? But if we ever wanted to switch to a back four, I'm not sure how you're going to use Hakimi. If you want to switch to a back four, I know you can use Traoré further forward, not just on as a wing back in it. That's my only issue. But I think either way, they will both improve my squad, improve this squad. And from what Simon Phillips said as well, they're looking at. I know this is going to sound mad, but they're looking at Traoré as possibly someone who can come off the bench and cause a lot of issues when players' legs are tired.
Exactly. And I think once that's again, man, it's like too many sick points, and for me, it comes down to how you have to see football today. It's not like how it was maybe 10, 15 years ago, where top players, you had to be class in many, many different things. You know what I mean? The pace was a lot slower. So, I mean, with more time on the ball, you've got to show more quality on that in certain situations. And, right now the game's different. It's all about the attributes of the player. What particular attributes do you have that's going to complement this system, this tactics I'm trying to run? And of course, we've seen Adama time and time again. Look at his big game records. I mean, when he used to come on in the last 20 minutes, single-handedly creating attacks out of nothing. Single-handedly. You can't get close to him. He's got, for me, is he a world-class player? No. But is he world-class in certain things? 100%. His dribbling on the ball, for me, is top elite, because for a guy with that builds, dribbling with his feet, not using his body and to try and get past this man. He's running on the ball with his feet.
Oh,
and
center
it's tight. It's yeah, exactly. Lower center, that ball is glued to his foot. You can't take it off him. And he knows how to get past this man. He takes on those high-risk dribbles all the time, and lots of times he's successful. So with Tuchel, I can see the vision. Final 20 minutes, we got Man City. You know what I mean? Maybe it's 0-0, or maybe it's like we're 1-0 up. We want to bring on some extra threat. You know what I mean? Bring on Traoré. He's going to get past 4 or 5 guys and boom, set someone up on the plate. So I think that, considering that he's versatile and some of the great things he's good at, give him in that wing back role, which for me is just like a godsend now for wingers, players that used to play as wingers, not like further up, but wingers like on the halfway line. That's what the wing back role is there for now.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm going to put this hypothetical because I'll probably disagree with you guys in terms of bringing in Traoré then, because for me personally, he's been playing in a Wolves team which is mainly counter-attacking. I know you can throw up, obviously, Silva, young kid. That's why the output from the assists has dropped, which is fair enough because he's not got Jimenez. But even still, when Jimenez was there, it's a counter-attacking based system mainly. He's running into space a lot of the time, and we're coming up against low blocks. Now, of course, I'm sure he can make that shift, which Willian used to do. You can take it out on your right foot and you can shift past a player quite quickly and you can put it across the box. My issue with him has been 2 things. Will he be able to do it consistently against a low block? Because he's never had to do that before at Wolves. And secondly, as well, with what was I going to say? Low block. And then secondly, as well, do you feel like it's worth the purchase? Because people are going to not like me now because I mentioned Tino Livramento, and that's cool. Like I said, you can agree to disagree. But if you had Tariq Lamptey in your squad currently, would you feel like you need to bring in? And the reason why I asked that is because people say, okay, why are you mentioning Tino? He's only 17. First of all, he's 18 and he's going to turn 19 in November. So he's not as young as you're going to portray in the chat. Second of all, Billy Gilmore, when he was 18, people were talking about him before he'd even played any minutes. You could have told everybody that Billy Gilmore was more technically astute for this team than Bakayoko, maybe Drinkwater or whatever. A lot of people were already ready to see Billy Gilmore in the first team because of what they'd seen in the academy. And like I said, I'm not saying that Livramento needs to be handed minutes next season, but for me, unless the player is of a world-class level and they have more bows to the arrow, because if you look at Hakimi's finishing, we spoke about it last week, that's on another level. The output in terms of just the end product, I'd trust him a lot more than Traoré. Traoré's, sometimes his decision-making can be a little bit up and down for me. He can be a bit raw in his final third decision-making and pick out the right person. That's something we've also struggled with this season, for players to actually pick out the right person, not just to, of course, you can carry the ball, one of the best ball carriers you can find. Yes, you've got the strength to get past players and whatnot, but then when you get to that final 10 meters, are you going to make the right decision consistently? That is what I would have a fear of, that I wouldn't have that same fear with Hakimi. And people will say, why are you bringing him up, Livramento? Well, if we haven't learned by now, we have a fantastic academy. And I'm not an academy merchant. I don't speak about the academy that often. But when Tino Livramento is winning Young Player of the Year and he's been head and shoulders probably better than what Tariq Lamptey was when he was in the academy, in my opinion, and he's shown what he can do in this position, a position that we used Victor Moses in. So it's a position that you've already shown you don't have to spend money, a large amount of money to get a lot of success from. Then I'm thinking if you ease a player like this in 6 months' time, I wouldn't be surprised if half this chat wanted Livramento in the starting 11 or wanted Livramento to see him more. Just the same way that Billy Gilmore puts in a performance against Scotland, a performance we know that he's more than capable of, and now suddenly people are saying we don't need a DM.
Yeah,
so I might be speaking out of turn here for a lot of people.
Yeah, you're
think
right.
I'm speaking too early. Man. But it doesn't take long for most of you to change and be like, hold on a second, this is a very talented player, just like Reece James was when Sarri wanted his right back from Napoli. Another thing I was against on. And I know this is Tuchel's target and he's won the Champions League. So by, at the end of the day, whatever he wants, I'm going to back. But just because you love a manager doesn't mean you have to agree with every single thing they want to do. Yeah. And it's the same with Sarri. Backed Sarri, but when he tried to bring in a right back and we had Reece James balling out for Wigan, I said, that's the wrong decision. And now I don't even know what that brother's name is.
Husai. And he's a squad player now at Napoli.
Let's be real. Husai, exactly.
Can I just say,
at the time.
Do you? The thing is,
Overlin, we wanted to bring in
Garni too. Remember, but
I asked this as well. I asked this with Billy Gilmore at the time because there was a lot of people during the time saying, after the Everton game and the Liverpool game, saying, and I think at that time as well, Kante was having injuries. People were saying, we should replace him with Billy Gilmore. And I asked the same question at the time, like, do you think? You could say age doesn't come into it. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm thinking in my mind, the level of team Chelsea is in. Chelsea, whether the rivals think so or not, but I think it's true. Chelsea are one of the premier teams in Europe, right? One of the biggest teams in Europe, whether anyone likes it or not. Do you think a guy of Livramento who hasn't played, I don't think he's played a game of senior football yet, is ready to step in to the right wing back role? And play about 40 or something.
Of course not.
Games a season.
You would ease him in. You would ease him in the Carabao Cup, and then same with Tariq Lamptey under Frank's first season. He comes in January, and suddenly he's at Brighton. And I'm seeing people say, "I wish we had kept Tariq Lamptey and not kept Reece James, who's looking really fat." This is what this fan base is.
All the time. Yeah.
You consider that. If you consider what you said there, then would it not be wise to go out and buy a Hakimi or Traoré? Because
Hakimi, yes, because I think he's world class. He's in another level. But
because the reason why I asked that question, some people ask, "Oh, what about Reece James playing there?" I've looked at Reece James and the way he plays. When it comes to that right wing back role, you need a bit of adventure. You need a bit of like driving forward. A lot of the times, even against with England the other day, and I've seen it a lot of Reece James this season, he's a bit safe and he doesn't want to necessarily. I don't know. It's like he just has this reservation in bombing forward. As from a wing back, you require a lot more of your player to bomb forward and be a bit more dynamic. With Reece James, he just seems a bit too safe, in my opinion, isn't it? But that's why I'm thinking there's no one else in that team to kind of hold it down until Livramento is ready. Hence why, if they do, and I don't want to play this back three, I would rather play a back four next season, innit? Because I think like it will add more going forward, innit? But if we do continue to play this back three, we're gonna need someone to play there. Do you know what I mean? And maybe Tuchel, who has seen Livramento, might not necessarily feel there's something there that he needs of a player in that position as of right now. Maybe that's why he wants to get a right-sided player.
So this is where, so just to counter, right? This is where, for me, Hudson-Odoi comes in. I was more than happy with what Hudson-Odoi was doing at right wing back under Tuchel. And I think Hudson-Odoi plus Reece James for half a season is not criminal. Reece James, by the way, played right wing back in the Champions League final. Do you know what I mean? It's not the end of the world. Of course, it's not the perfect situation. That's why I would bring in Hakimi. But for me, when you bring in Traoré, that means you're not keeping, like, Livramento is leaving the football club, period. That's what happens, in my opinion. So is that worth it?
Why do you feel that
because
way?
His contract is running out.
Yeah,
I
agree for sure. And that's the reality. Like, I don't think it's, for me, I don't necessarily agree with the argument that because you've got no first team minutes, it means that you could be a risk or a gamble. Personally, I feel like that's always been the same kind of argument, even before your Mounts and Coles got in the team. There's always been an argument for every youth player from the academy. But I think by now we've got to take confidence from the fact that we don't just have any academy. You know what I mean? It's one of the very, very best out there that's consistently shown for 10 years now that is producing players of a very, very high level. I mean, players that even leave us, they're not having careers in like League One afterwards. Most of these guys now are playing in top divisions, playing in championship football. You're getting their debut seasons playing in rigorous football against men week in, week out. For me, that wing back role actually is one of those roles where you can use a young player. I mean, we saw Tariq Lamptey. The time it was the same argument beforehand.
Yeah,
Inslee. That's why he had to leave.
Instantly goes to Brighton.
These guys know the level they're at. They know how good they are. You know what I mean? He went to Brighton. Boom. He's playing against Prem teams just like that. That argument's out the window because now
there's not as much pressure at Brighton than there is at Chelsea.
Yeah, I know, but these guys, but these guys have been able to handle the pressure since they were kids. Like, you got to think, when you're one of the very best, you're constantly being competing. Like, since you signed for the club as a kids, you know what I mean? And you're winning things. It's not just we're not just coaching them just to be top players, but also have that mentality as well. And I think that's one of the reasons now why so many clubs across Europe constantly after our players. In Germany for years and years has been interesting guys. I remember Leipzig doing the most to try and sign Reece James when he was a 16-year-old, and it's going to continue because the rest of Europe sees the talent that we have. You can get these guys for absolutely nothing. And for me, I feel like it does come down to a bit of like an old school mentality of, I don't know, like I feel like there's these old school like ways of seeing the game that kind of dictate how the game's discussed here, which doesn't necessarily work in other countries. And I think there's been so much evidence to show that actually, in fact, there is no risk in that sense. I think Livramento easily could play in this team right now. I'm hoping he gets a preseason, and if he does, then I'm sure he's going to demonstrate his talent. Because for me, as I keep saying, we have the cup of Hakimi. I mean, if you like Hakimi, bruv, we've already got this guy Livramento already.
Who is the guy that we sold to Bayern Munich? What's his name again? It was
Musiala. We sold two. Musiala. And Bright Mbui, who's another sick defender.
Sell them, or did they go on a free?
No, they just left, isn't it?
Yeah, they obviously. This is before Frank was even here. Obviously, Musiala was seeing the talent this guy is right now, and
how many minutes did he have in first team football, NiiNii?
That's what I mean. None, exactly. But Bayern, top team giving him chances, and boom, look at that, and look how he plays the game. It's not the club's fault. He wanted to leave.
Look at what you guys are saying. Yeah. Musiala is coming. This is what I'm saying. So obviously, you're looking at, say you bring in a Hakimi and you're bringing in Traoré. Livramento stays and he's being eased into the team. Musiala is being eased in at Bayern Munich. He's not. I don't think he stays though, if you sign another player. I really don't. I think there's already quite. That's kind of down to him. That's down to him.
That's what I'm asking you. Do you think it's worth signing Adama Traoré at the level that he is, because he's not world class, or having a Hudson-Odoi, Reece James, and easing Livramento in like that? What would you say is worth it? Because for me, in the long run, I go Hakimi, sign Hakimi at all costs, or you deal with Livramento, or you, and then Adama Traoré would be lost. Because if you're signing world class, or you're nurturing world-class potential or extremely good potential, because Adama Traoré is not even world-class. So this is what is in my head. And I don't know.
Matisse, I mean, it's at the end of the day, I mean, that kind of asks the question of Tuchel is, do you want to bring in a world? I mean, Do you want to bring in a world-class player and then have this? I don't even know if Hakimi's world-class, by the way, but if you want to bring in
I'd say in his
Hakimi,
position, yeah.
you want to bring in Hakimi and let him do his thing. Livermento obviously work his way in and things like that, or you want to bring in Traoré. If to me, if Livermento is that good, then at the end of the day, at some point, he will start benching Traoré if he's that much better in it. Do you know what I mean? It's a tough question because at the same time, you got to ask as well, if Tuchel feels he needs something right now to win the league, can you deny him of that? That's another question you got to ask yourself.
I hear that, but I don't know. I feel like sometimes it depends on the profile of the manager. Like that's why Lampard was so important, because he knew that, you know, in the long term, if these guys get their 15 games clocked up already, you're going to see the players they can become. And I think Mason Mount was a prime example of that. You know, as we said in the last stream, man, he was called a teacher's pet, and you know the vision, you know, the foresight wasn't there. And now that he's physically developed, because that's what it is. Once these guys grow into their bodies and get bigger, you know what I mean? Because you imagine you're a kid playing against grown men who are, as I said before, you know, they got responsibilities. They got a job. It's their job. They'll hack down a 17-year-old and not care. And you know, if you don't feel like you have that composure because you're worried about getting knocked to the floor, of course you're not going to play to the best of your strengths. You know what I mean? But I know I've seen some comments in the chat. For me, you know, I started my channel nearly 5 years ago now. From day one, I was repping your Jameses, your Mounts, all these guys that are now boarding the team right now, and it was the same arguments used back then. I think, as we kind of proved with this conversation too, the minute you watch a player and see them, it completely transforms your opinion on them. And you know what I mean? I don't agree with the notion at all that Livramento would be a handicap. I mean, he falls in a long line of players that have been Young Player of the Year who've gone on to play for this first team. You know what I mean? So I think already that should kind of give you a bit of confidence in that. And the way the guy plays the game is constantly at a pace. He's got a left foot, he's got a right foot. The decision making at pace, that is what separates him, and that's why I think he's such a sick player, because
this is why
the balls in the books he puts in, he puts in that books.
He's a little bit more versatile for me than a Traoré.
You know what we're not taking into consideration here when we're looking at, you know, we're talking about Reece James, we're talking about Tammy Abraham, we're talking about who's the other one, Mason Mount. In order for these guys to become the players they had to go out and experience the game at a different level. So Mason Mount had multiple loans. He went to Derby, he went to Europe and did his thing there. Tammy Abraham with Swansea, with I think Bristol City, with Aston Villa as well, got some experience there. Reece James got some experience at Wigan. Whereas the players that went straight from the academy to the first team, they struggled a bit. And I'm talking about who is it? Billy Gilmore and Callum Hudson-Odoi. They've struggled a bit, you know what I mean? And even when you talk about Tariq Lamptey, he is brilliant at Brighton. By the same time, the pressure of playing at Brighton, or the pressure of playing the academy, and then the pressure of playing for Chelsea's senior team is like, it's the difference is exponential. Like, it's a massive difference. You know what I mean?
Ideally, there's alone
a
would
lot
be
more
perfect. Yeah.
No, I do hear that. I definitely understand the argument, but for me, because our academy is different, I really have to stress that. Like, it's like, imagine you're sending your kids going to Cambridge or Oxford. That uni is different to any other top 25 uni in the country, and I know that because my sister even went Cambridge. And the things she was telling me about that uni in terms of workload and what they expect from you is completely different to what I experienced and what many guys that I know who went to sick unis experience too. So, you know, for me, this is why these guys are they become even more viable options to use in the first team, because it's their mentality. I don't let them down. And obviously, I get the argument about, you know, Gilmore and Hudson-Odoi. I think what really messed them up was injuries at the wrong time. And that's what this game's all about. You get injuries at the wrong time. Next man comes and takes your place, and managers will just stick because they're not going to mess up what hasn't failed them so far. And you know, I could go even deeper with this. Like, the reason why Hudson even was out the team in the end was because as we got to that break, you know, make or break part of the season, we saw from Tuchel already that, you know, he will rely upon experience because he feels more safe about that. I don't think that's necessarily the only way managers have to move. There's many different ways. I mean, we've seen Pep Guardiola, with the greatest Barcelona team of all time, still give lots of minutes to guys from that academy, and most of them went on to not even do much afterwards when they left Barcelona. So that didn't ruin the quality of the team, you know what I mean? So I do think that we're in a situation now, we've got to take it serious. I mean, the players we're looking to sell are academy guys who their player cost is absolutely nothing. Their value has gone up to be ridiculous too. And they're now making profit for us, which your Bakayokos and many others can't do because no one wants them, and we bought them at stupid prices. So the fact that their value can go up that high and there's so much interest kind of says quite a lot. And I think, if you don't give opportunities to your Livramentos, I think about the long game, because I think for football clubs, you need to have your short-term goals and your long-term ones. I think sometimes our club focus on the short-term too much. And, we've seen ourselves what type of seasons you can have from such a mentality like that. But for me, if you're not going to give a fair chance to Livramento, especially like one of the best guys there too, and one that the minute people see will be like, what, worries will screw out the door, then our best young guys, as we've seen already with Musiala and Briat, and many more will go, and they'll just use us as a way to get their education and then go on to have careers, because we're still stuck in mentalities where we want to, we're expecting I don't know, just like old school ways of seeing things before they can even get in the game, to be honest.
But then what do you guys consider as a fair chance? So that's the question I'm trying to ask.
The fair chance for me would be, so the fair chance for me would be the Carabao Cup games, something like that, and maybe some FA Cup early round fixtures. And then even, like I said, if you have
for the Prem games.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it depends how you perform in the Carabao Cup. It depends, you can bring him off the bench. Billy Gilmore was brought on off the bench against Sheffield United, I believe, in his first Premier League debut. But for me, the cup games. Now, what I would ideally want, and again, I'm going to read out some super chats, but this is where, when people start shouting Cobham sexuals in the chat, especially when my channel is not a channel about
it's just immature, to be honest.
It's immature. It just tells me that you're immature, because
whole time.
It tells me you're immature, because when you look at Brozier, Tammy, you don't hear me talking about we should not be getting Haaland because of those two. When you hear, but then on the flip side, Mason Mount, Reece James, Christensen, these are academy players. These are the players that started in the Champions League final or came on and did amazingly in the Champions League final. So there's no point pretending that players from Cobham can't come into this team and start and be some of your favorite players that you get on the name of the back of your shirt. That's the first thing.
Of course.
Samio says, how was I late to the Dream Link Up? Big up, guys. Bless up, Samo. I'll be signing a striker this window. That will be the last thing that we go on to for the last 10 minutes, just before we wrap up this wing back debate. But yeah, when it comes to Livramento, my dream scenario would be is that you play him in the Carabao Cup games, some of those early FA Cup round fixtures. You get him to sign a new contract. And this is, by the way, if we don't sign Hakimi. Hakimi is priority for me in terms of this wing-back position. But if you don't get Hakimi, I would prefer Livramento to get those cup games for the first 6 months, get that new contract signed up, loan him in January, and then you can look at Adama Traoré in January. I don't think Adama Traoré is necessary in the first 6 months.
So obviously go off that. I mean, the question is, okay, you're talking about him being the cup games and things like that, which is fair enough. But then that shouldn't stop you from getting whoever you want to get at a right wing back position to be.
It will in his mind. I think it will, because then he'll say to himself, "Well, I've got Reece James, I've got Adama Traoré, I've got there's how many more."
Reece James will be the right centre back.
I
think he will be.
I think if you sign Hakimi, I personally don't think he'll sign the new contract. I think if you sign Adama Traoré, I don't think he'll sign a new contract either.
Yeah.
I don't see it personally. That's just what I don't think it's up to you. Like I said, it's down to different opinions. But I personally don't think Adama Traoré is worth him not signing the new contract, whereas Hakimi is.
I fully agree. And, obviously the question you're asking too, what is the best way to ease him in? I mean, I've got like a different perspective on it. And, it reminds me of that game that Tuchel took over against Wolves. We instantly saw Hudson-Odoi playing as a wing-back. And you got to realize he's never, ever played there before. What was it about him? We had no experience as he was inexperienced playing as a right wing-back. So what gave Tuchel that confidence to think, okay, my first game, I'm going to do something that hasn't been seen before. I'm going to play Hudson-Odoi as a right wing back, and I think that's what it comes down to. Use Livramento if you feel that you need to use pace in behind against your opponents, because I think he's at such a good level where he's not going to break down passes or
this is my thing. This position is the position Victor Moses played in. It's not a position that I think is going to cost the team massively. That's what I'm saying.
And did Moses need 4 or 5 months to get used to that? No, of course not. It was an instant thing, as we saw with Hudson-Odoi. So this is what I'm trying to say. If you've got a guy that's already been playing now right back, wing back, right mid his whole career. Just as we've seen with Reece, Lamptey, Aina, many more that are playing at a high level right now. Then for me, it simply comes down to the fact that if Tuchel feels he needs pacing behind against certain opposition, use Livramento. I don't think you need to do this whole cup game thing unless it's like a 17-year-old or something. Then I get that.
He's gonna be 19 in November. He's not.
That's what I mean. And this guy, he's not 5'11". He's a stocky guy.
I don't know if you guys or you do understand this, but just the step up from Chelsea Academy, although our academy is probably the best in the world and it has been for so many years, but to straight to the Chelsea first team.
But we've seen it.
We've seen it with Hudson-Odoi.
Gilmore came in straight.
But how many games? How many games did they play? Like that's what
I'm saying. I wouldn't give him
how many games did they play?
That's what I'm saying.
But you can only judge the games they'll play from how they perform first. And as I'm saying, every time we've seen guys like Gilmore, you look at his height, his physicality. This is a guy that no one would think would be playing in the Chelsea midfield. But Lampard gave him the opportunity. And every time now, that was against a top 10 team. And most of his game time has been against top opposition, which he's winning man of the match awards in and is standing out in these games.
But with Gilmore, he had 2 great games, Everton and Liverpool, and then the next 2 games weren't necessarily the best of games.
Yeah, but but you could say that. There's been many a time experienced guys have had the same type of energy. You know what I mean? Where they've let the team down, or it just happens. It happens.
Is Adama Traoré on the level where he's not going to make mistakes? 100%.
I'm not advocating.
I think
I'm not
advocating
for Adama Traoré.
Yeah,
I'm just saying for the sake of the player himself, so for the sake of Livramento himself, to throw him in, so he's never played a senior football in his life. Throw and I don't think people realize the level between, say, a Brighton or Aston Villa or whatever, and a Chelsea. Those are big shoes to fill, and to throw him in and get him 30, 40, whatever games.
But you wouldn't be given him that.
Season,
you wouldn't be given him that. You
would.
You wouldn't, because you have Hudson-Odoi, you have Reece James, you have other options. That's why I'm saying you would ease him in those cup games.
Yeah, but Tuchel, let's be honest, Tuchel, I don't think Tuchel, from my perspective, I don't think Tuchel sees Hudson-Odoi or Reece James as the guys to play that position. Do you get what I mean? Hence why he's looking for someone to fill it. So if Livramento was to be filling in that position, he's the one to play there permanently this season.
We've seen. I get where you're going, but I think we've seen. First of all, Tuchel's a very good coach. So if we was confident in Frank Lampard developing players with not a lot of managerial experience, I think Tuchel we should have even more confidence because he's good with young players. But also the second point would be is that 100%. I get what you're saying, but we've also seen that Tuchel can be very flexible with his tactics. We've seen that. And he is a very flexible manager. He's got different formations up his sleeves. He's got different variations of how to play up his sleeves. He's very pragmatic. He can be very attacking. He can be very defensive. 100%, I want that wing back who can play those 30, 40 games that you're talking about, which is the Hakimi level. But I don't think Traoré is of the level where it is worth sacrificing what is a potential in
I'm not putting it on one name. I'm not saying...
Yeah.
I'm just saying in general, like, when it comes to these young players, I say this the same thing about what's his name at Man United, Greenwood, and all these players. I'm always like, listen, normally, yes, with young players, you expect them to be inconsistent. If Mason Mount or Reece James or whatever, Havertz is inconsistent, I always say, listen, they're young. You need to remember they're 20-some, 22 or whatever. You should expect that of them. Don't expect them to be performing at the highest level constantly because they still need to develop and things like that. But then it's the same thing with Livramento, where to me it's just like, putting that on him might be too much too early. Do you know what I mean? Because we are still yet to see him against the big boys. Do you know what I mean? We're still yet to see him against the big boys.
I would definitely wouldn't play him against the big boys from the bat. I think that's Reece James. Reece James showed in the Champions League final what he can do against the big teams. Samo says NiiNii being about that youth lifestyle. TT can develop man's. The loan thing is a myth. Look at the teams in Europe. Youths are eased in over time.
Exactly. I look at Mr. Yala, for example. I mean, he's played a lot of games, but he's not playing like he's played like, I think 30 something games. I think 10 starts and most of subs. I think that's what you do to bring these guys in. You know what I mean? Tuchel's had a history of using young players even younger than Livramento than what we're talking about. And you know, for the wing back position, you know, Tuchel's not going to look at a guy that he wants to be first team there forever. He just wants a complete squad because with the managers like him and many other ones today, they want to have squads which they can have that flexibility. You know what I mean? You're playing against many different teams. You want a squad that's going to be ready to handle all types of tactical, different teams and their setups, and I can cope throughout a very long and grueling season. So I don't know. My thing is that I don't know. Livramento has fallen in line with a lot of players that have won Young Player of the Year awards before, who we're seeing doing big things now already. When you see how he plays the game too, that can easily translate to the first team. And I don't know, even this whole thing between, like, I mean, I get the point, obviously, a bit about, if you're playing for Brighton and you're playing for like one of the big teams, of course it's different. Big teams, there's more expectancy because you're expected to win, because that's your goals every season. Other clubs like that, they know they're not going to be winning trophies, and they'll be lucky if they get a nice cup run or something like that. So of course, I guess that give a young player more feel more relaxed to play their game, you know what I mean? But I do think now things are a bit different, and just based on the fact we've seen many guys just come straight into the team and perform instantly, I think that these are the pathways you have to still leave open, because there's guys younger than Livramento who will be blowing up soon, coming for our academy. And something like a Charlie Webster, if I don't see this guy in our first team one day, you know what I mean, then there'll be something completely wrong with what's happening here, because you can't have a talent that good and then we're not opening pathways like what your Bayerns do and many other clubs in Europe do as well. So I think maybe we can leave it, disagree to disagree, but I don't know. I definitely think that Livramento would be the option.
Let's see here. Undisputed says we are in 5 comps. Hakimi and Liv can rotate at right wing back, Aspie and RJ at right side centre back, Silva and Chris at centre back, and Rudiger and Gilmore at left side centre back. I think a lot of people's solution would just be to loan Livramento, and if it was that easy. But a lot of people's solution in the chat seems to be just loan him. And of course, you could, if he was down on a 5-year contract, or he had 4 years left or 3 years left, you could just loan him, and this wouldn't even really be as much as a discussion potentially. But because he's only got 1 year left, I don't think, usually when you've got a year left, you don't tend to go out on loan with that year still sitting there. Unless he signs a new contract, he's either going to have to be kept here and shown that there is a pathway for him, or he's going to leave. I don't see him having a year left, and with that year left, the club organising a loan deal 100%. So he can go on a loan deal, impress potentially, and then leave on a free and be in a very powerful negotiating position himself. So because he doesn't have those years on his contract, that makes it a much more precarious situation for him in terms of his this loan deal that a lot of people want him to do. Do you think TT wants Hakimi because Reece is not being attacking enough at the end of the season? Even for England, he did not seem to attack. I think for England, first of all, there was no option down the right for him to link up with. If you look at the heap, if you look at the average positions, everybody went to the left and just left Reece on his own. And if you leave someone on their own, especially when he's not a winger, then he's going to have to go back. He's got no choice. I think Reece is that blend between Aspie and Hakimi. Reece is a great crosser of the ball, but he doesn't have that 1v1 that a winger would have, like Hudson-Odoi in the opening few games. So he's not going to be your most attacking option in comparison. But like I said, it's not the worst option in the world. Do you know what I mean? We're probably overdoing it in terms of that. There was one more thing that people wanted to discuss just before we wrap up, which was a certain Swedish striker. Don't know if you guys have seen him. Apparently there's a link to Chelsea with Alexander Isak. I mean, what do you guys make of this link? Do you think it's too soon for him to be linked with, because he's very young, isn't he? And we've seen the pressure of wearing this out and out number 9, and we have to differentiate people. The striker position, there's a lot more pressure on it than a right wing back or a left wing back. Or the striker position there is no room to hide. If you don't put the chances in the back of the net, it's a problem. Do you know what I mean? So the pressure that comes with this position, for me, is a lot less youthful, in my opinion. I don't have as much. I think the average person probably won't have as much patience for youth in this position, because it is such a cutthroat position that if there's either goals or there's issues. Do you know what I mean? I mean, what do you guys think with this link? Because obviously Haaland's the priority target, and this is the alternative again.
I think he's sorry, man.
Go for it.
Oh, cool, man. I think Isak, again, guy with great potential. When I look at players, the main thing I focus on is, okay, how are they going to complement the system we're trying to play? Because if you suit the system, that's how your best qualities are going to shine, and that's how we're really going to see what you're about. You know, I think he has the potential to be like one of, you know, a top forward in Europe. You know, the way he plays the game, his ability to drop deep. You know, I love, for me, I love strikers that actually have technical ability. And I say that because if you clock most strikers, they don't have the skill to consistently get past their man or like play that final ball all the time, etc., etc. But with Isaac, he's one of those strikers where, you know, he'll drift to that left-hand side, he'll drop deep, he'll just instantly provide a counter-attacking threat with proper quality because he can, you know, he can really get past his man and create things. I think it's a great all-round striker. But again, it comes down to what you're saying about Matisse. Like, of course, you know, do you want, you probably want a bit more experience. And even though I think he's had a great season, 17 goals, Sociedad, you know, again, double digits. A lot of those goals have come against, you know, the smaller teams, which isn't a disrespect, you know what I mean? But in certain games I've seen against big ones, maybe that United's in the Europa League, I didn't feel like he really shone as much, to be honest. And I don't know, I feel like even though he's definitely one to keep an eye out for, and I like him a lot, I don't know if he's the signing I'd make. I think for me, it would have to be Haaland. He's the only one because Haaland, probably the Champions League records out of this world. His big game records out of this world. I mean, the way he brings that counter-attacking threat, so he can do all of that. And I just think that he does it at a higher level, to be honest. So Isaac, sick player. But again, for what we need, like a consistent threat getting goals. Where at this point in time, we can't afford to maybe give like a season. You know what I mean? Again, we can't give another season to a striker. We need one to come in and try and do something now.
Do the business.
Yeah, I don't think Isaac at this point in time, but for sure, he's one. Pay attention to him. You know, I mean, he's only 21. Another 3 years, these guys are going to be, what, 23, 24 years old. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. For me, it's always been Haaland, Lukaku, Kane. I think it's going to take that level of striker for us to really kick on. I mean, Monstar, what about you? What do you feel?
Isak. Oh man, he looks good. I can't lie. He looks very good. He's on his feet. He's got little twinkle toes as well. The problem I have with him is obviously his finishing. It does look like he needs to work on his finishing, and he's like that final decision, the decision making, still needs to work on that. But I think if he comes to Chelsea, I think that's a good idea. No. Right now, no, just stay where you are and develop.
Yeah,
maybe for another year or two, you'll be a great player. I think he's going to be a great player, man. I just think moving right now might not be the best decision for him. Yeah. Like if he does move, don't move to a massive team like that. Not yet.
I think going back to Dortmund potentially, that release clause. I don't know his personal relationship with Dortmund, but
no, apparently Dortmund are not. I think they've already discussed about removing the release clause for 10 million or something like that. So I don't think they're gonna exercise the release clause.
If I was Isaac, I'm waiting for Lewandowski to retire, and then I'm trying to get myself into Bayern Munich's team. You know, I think he'd make a lot of sense there. You know,
you don't think it would be too big for him, too big of a jump from Real Sociedad, or maybe are you saying in a couple of years?
A couple of years. That's what I mean. When the spots are open, and some of these guys are phased out, but these guys will be ready at 23, 24. Don't rush it, because if he signed for us tomorrow, you know, we'll be seeing him. I would think between him and Kai Havertz up front, and I don't know, Giroud if he's still here, or Tammy if he's still here. So, I think based on those reasons, that's why we can't get him, because we're looking for a guy who's undisputed number one. You know what I mean?
Someone said if Isak is not ready, why are we bringing Berger back as a backup? Well, as a backup, that's why. I think if you're
doing that, the main man.
He's not going to be the main man. He's going to be probably third choice, maybe even fourth behind Kai Havertz,
that's
the new striker, and Werner. Yeah, exactly. Werner plays against the high lines up front. Kai Havertz plays false nine as well, and then the new striker is potentially going to be fourth choice.
If Chelsea were to buy him for 60 or whatever mil, then they're probably gonna have to play him. I think they will have to.
Oh, you would? Yeah, of course. We know how. We already know how it goes with the big money signings.
Hey, but we saw last season though. We spent big money on your Kai, and there's times he was out the team too. So that's what I mean. I feel like it could be the same thing for an Isaac, and yes, one to watch, but not for us right now.
It would cost quite a bit, and he would probably have to. I mean, listen, if you're going to cost 60 million as a striker, rotation is going to be difficult for a lot to wrap around that. AJ, final super chat just before we go. Big up the 3Gs from NYC. What we're going to do about the midfield? We need some goals from that area. Personnel needs tweaking. Locatelli needed. I mean, for me personally, I think from an attacking midfield perspective, we signed Kai, we signed Ziyech. I think a little bit more patience in terms of just the players that came in last summer. unless we're going to admit that the club have done scouting completely wrong, I think, we've got to give these guys one full normal season to show what they can do in these positions. Mason Mount's playing this role as well. I think he's going to add goals to his game. That's the one thing that I think he's got to bring to his game, which is just composure in the box. But I think he's going to bring it on a more consistent basis. We've seen him get a few goals here and there at crucial times, Liverpool, Fulham, etc. Obviously, the goal in the Champions League as well. So he's got it in his game to shoot from range, in my opinion, with the technique that I've seen. And Locatelli, again, I don't really have a preference in DM. I think, Tchouaméni, NiiNii's been telling me about him, great player. Locatelli seems like a person who's had a good season in Serie A, although I haven't been watching. Rice, I've already told you guys as well, if the price is not crazy, if it's not 80 million, I think Tuchel can work with him, despite the recent outcry after that England performance. And there's probably others as well. There's probably others, Phillips, there's others. I'm not really, because I can see Jorginho having such a great tournament. Kovacic, I still think is a very good player to have. Kante is world class. I'm not really too, wound up or worried about this position. I think we need a fourth player if Gilmore's to go out on loan, which would be great. Condolences to him as well. Obviously, he caught the C word there, so that's a shame. Obviously, he's not been able to play for Scotland in this tournament and continue to show his worth. Yeah, very peak timing as well. Imagine could have got a great loan. But yeah, I think anybody who comes into that midfield that's of this level that I've just mentioned, I think Tuchel can work with them and improve them. So it's just about whoever he prefers and making sure the price is right. Any final things from you guys just before we wrap up? Do you think any final thoughts you want to put out there?
Obviously, with the question about midfields, obviously, I don't think we should really expect goals from there because our midfielders aren't meant to be creating shots on goal. You know what I mean? We've got the back three, the 2 mids that sit in front. They're not looking to leave their position too much. I think the goals will come from the front three if we stick with that, and the odd goals from the wing backs as well. So, if you want to see goals, one thing I'm hoping for next season, I want to have a big game tactic. And I want to have a tactic for the bottom half teams. And for me, against the bottom half, you want to have an extra guy in the final thirds. I think it becomes very easy to defend against when you're only attacking with 5 men and then 2 mids that have no goal threat or no threat from outside the box or anything like that. So I'm sure Tuchel's seen that. I'm sure he's seen that. I'm hoping next season because Tuchel didn't have a pre-season, which is mad. We got this. We won the Champions League. We had a good season. He didn't have a pre-season at all. Yeah. And that makes such a big difference when you have working with the squad for 4-5 weeks, whatever, before the season starts. That makes a massive difference because you don't have that time when the season kicks off. So for me, I need to see like a 4-3-3 because then we should expect more goals from midfields. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens though.
Well, guys, Monstar, anything final thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to. Obviously, everyone knows I love Tchouaméni. I think he's a brilliant midfielder, and I think obviously the age, and he's not necessarily, if he's being brought in, he doesn't need to get in the team straight away. And I think also, him and Billy Gilmore for the future as well could play great together in years to come when obviously Kante and Jorginho move on. So, I think if Chelsea do end up buying a midfielder, it will be him because I don't think West Ham are going to reduce that price. Yeah. I don't think they're necessarily going to accept a player on whatever money, you know what I mean? And obviously they're in Europe as well, so they need to keep on to him for now. And I think maybe Declan Rice could end up at Chelsea in a year or two's time once the contract runs down as well. So I really do see Tchouaméni being that midfielder that comes in over anyone else.
Yeah, like I've said on air before, I'm not too pressed about which midfielder we get. I think they're all quite talented in different ways. I would I think we do need a sitter because Jorginho is the only real sitter. I think Kante likes to go forward, and I like him roaming and closing down spaces. Kova is a ball carrier as well. I wouldn't really say he's a sitter. So someone that would be a sitter would be ideal. But the logic has got to stand up, people, because if you want a Traoré because he's Tuchel's target, which is what is reported, and as an alternative to Hakimi, well then guess what? Declan Rice is apparently his first choice target as well in the midfield.
Different though.
It's a bit different, of course. The price is, but I need people to be able to say that okay, you can disagree with the Champions League winning manager. Do you know what I mean? Pep doesn't always get it right. Tuchel, you can listen. I agree with 99.9% of the things he does. Did I agree with the way that we approached that week for the FA Cup final, Arsenal, Man City? No, I didn't. Arsenal and Leicester? No, I didn't. So, you know, you can have these little disagreements, even though he's a top manager. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So it's been a great debate. It's exactly what I, you know, more than what I could have asked for, to be honest. We've had a great debate on it, and we've kind of given you guys every single angle, and now you can make up your own decision, which is great. Do you know what I mean? You haven't really just been given one point of view. You've been given many point of view on the wing back situation in particular. So yeah, that's it really from us, people. The links are in description. NiiNii, Monstar, any content coming out from you guys? Monstar, I'll start with you. What you got coming out in the next couple of days? Let the people know.
Just the transfer stories, man. Just covering that basically, innit? Just doing live streams as usual on the transfers. That's it for now. Until the Euros is over, man. I can't wait till it's over. Because it's not coming home, people.
NiiNii, what about yourself, bro? What have you got coming up?
Yeah, you guys, you know, same old news stories, discussions. I'm looking to do a few more streams as well. Q&A is bringing them back. So of course, stay tuned for that, you guys. And yeah, man, of course, Ma, always glad to come on, man. Always fun talking football.
Love stuff. It's been great. It's been a great show, guys. Loads of debate on the centre backs, the wing back, and of course, the striker situation as well. And yeah, I will see you guys potentially later on with another video, depending on what happens with the Euros tonight. Check out my Instagram as well. I'll put that link in the description. I'll put up a little skit on Turkey. The dark horse is getting eliminated with no points. It's quite funny. So check that out on Instagram. And spam the emoji, the turkey flag emoji in the comments on Instagram, just so I know that you're there. In a bit, people. Peace.